lunch has taken its toll. I will be talking of casualties of the fashion industry, and now I see casualties of lunch and a very long morning session. But anyway, very good afternoon to all of you, and I hope you're not sleepy because I have some really interesting slides for you, and I'm very dependent on slides. Hence all that shifting, and hence this super fashionable mic. So I will be talking about sustainability challenges in the fashion industry, supply chain. And post-lunch, I have a very interesting picture for you. You must have heard of eaten at McDonald's. This is a Big Mac. Looks extremely unhealthy with lots of cheese and meat and what have you. So why am I starting my talk with this? Christina Dean, the founder of Redress and CEO, says, today, buying a dress is like buying a Big Mac. It's cheap, it's fast, and judging by the poor quality seen in fast fashion clothes, not very healthy. And that is going to set the scene for my talk today. So I'll be talking about, as I said, casualties of the fashion industry. The Boston Consulting Group and the Global Fashion Agenda, they have predicted that an annual global apparel and footwear consumption will increase from 2016 levels of 62 million tons to 102 million tons by 2030. So almost double in 15 years. And what we are seeing today is fast fashion. So many of you must have seen, Myntra, buying online, clothes online, and every day, almost every day, there are new clothes being uploaded. And what happens to all these clothes? And why are we buying so much? So, and our consumption patterns, what is it directed by and where does it lead? What are the impacts on society and the environment? So there are social impacts and environmental impacts. Now what happens with the fashion industry is that it is based on a take, make and waste business model, wherein in the pre-consumption phase, before the clothes reach the shop and we buy them, there is a lot of raw material extraction, there's research and design, and then the garment is manufactured, and then packaging and delivery. And in this stage, what we are doing is we're taking resources and we are making the garment. Then it reaches the shop, and from where we go and purchase. And that is after that comes the post-consumption phase, where we are wearing it, where we are maintaining it, where we are laundering it. And so there is the product use and its maintenance. And whether we recycle or not at the end of the life of the clothes is optional. If I feel like I recycle it, otherwise I send it to the landfill, I just throw it out. Different people have different approaches for clothes. And this take, make, waste business model is what creates all the problems. So what actually happens to all these clothes that we buy? Earlier we used to see 4 seasons of clothing that designers used to put out. Summer, winter, fall and spring. So 4 times a year Paris would have its catwalk, ramp walk and all of that, the fashion week would happen. But now fast fashion clothing lines like Zara, H&M, they are bringing out more than 20 seasons. So more than 20 times a year, they are bringing in new clothes, and the old clothes are just shunted out of the ones which are unsold, they are shunted out of the shops, and we don't see them in the shops anymore. So what is happening to all this clothes that we buy? After it has reached end of use, 80% of the clothes that we buy will be ultimately disposed of, out of which 30% will be burnt. They'll be sent to incinerators. And 70% will go to landfill. Again, 20% of this after end of use, they will be collected and sorted. And out of this 20%, 40% might be reused, and 50% could go for recycling. And when we look at the final share of clothing waste, incineration and landfill, the clothing waste is 25% and 57% respectively. And here, reuse and recycling, they are the final share in clothing waste is 8% and 10%. So you can see that this forms the majority share of clothing waste and where it lands up. So there are obvious, yes.
Can I ask now or at the end?
At the end? Okay, tell me.
The previous slide,
okay.
How do you differentiate reuse and recycle?
So reuse is if I am giving my clothes to someone else and they are using it, so that furthers the life of the clothes before it is finally disposed of, either to incineration or landfill. And recycling is when you are recycling, maybe it is taken apart, the fibers are taken apart, made into new fibers, and that fiber again enters the production stream again.
The production stream could be either a local one or does
anywhere.
It go
Yes, it can be anywhere.
Clean.
So see, when we are talking about reuse, there is this whole problem of sending clothes that we don't need to Africa. So second-hand clothes in Africa. So that is not considered a sustainable stream, because even though it is reused, it's not a sustainable stream, because you're transporting and people there may not want it, which is what is happening these days. There are shiploads of second-hand clothes which are being exported to Africa from UK, from European countries, from America, and they are being sent back. They are not being accepted by those countries because they have overload of second-hand clothing, and it is affecting their own manufacturing system. Okay, so that is not considered sustainable, because just shunting of clothes from one place to another, even though it is being reused, is not considered sustainability or recycling. It is just being reused in another location in the world. So these, at each stage of the life cycle of or the supply chain of clothes, there are social and environmental impacts. So the first stage is of materials, where raw materials are extracted, fibers, one has a choice, designers choose what fibers to use. And what are the impacts that, if you are growing cotton, then cotton uses maximum amount of pesticide as compared to any other crop. So pesticides are chemicals and they have a huge environmental impact, and also on the health of human beings. Then water used in cotton growing is excessive amounts of water is used. There could be genetically modified cotton may be used, which again has harmful impacts on environment and health. Are the growers, are they being given fair prices for the cotton that they are growing? There could be animal welfare, so we might be using fur or any other animal products which are used. So are animals being treated fairly when materials are being harvested for the production system? And use of oil and synthetics. So synthetics like polyester, nylon, they are all made out of fossil fuel, out of oils. And ultimately, all of this, when we are washing, they shed microfiber, and it goes back into the environment and it pollutes our water systems, and then it comes back to us. The fish will eat it and it will move up the food chain, and ultimately it enters our bloodstream. Second stage in the supply chain is fabric and garment production, where the manufacturing is actually happening. So textile treatments require a lot of chemicals. More than 8,000 chemicals are used in the fashion industry. Water and energy, how much of it is used in the textile processes? Fabric and resource waste. So pre-consumption waste. So if there are bales of some fabric, it might be left over. It may not get sold, so that is waste. Or the fabric which is being delivered, it might get damaged. That could lead to waste. Or once the garment has been cut out of the fabric, the leftover fabric, that also is waste. Working conditions in factories, which we will come to in a short while in more detail. Next stage is the distribution and retail. So when we go to a store like Shoppers Stop or West Side, so these are the high street stores. So what is the working condition there? How much are those workers paid? How are the suppliers treated? Do the retailers actually pay them properly? Do they honor their contracts? Or in many cases during the pandemic, there were these brands, high fashion brands, that had placed orders, and those orders, many of those orders had been delivered, but they refused to pay up because they themselves didn't have money. So are the suppliers treated properly? Energy use, how much of energy is being used in these stores that we go to? The packaging, what is the packaging material? Is it biodegradable? Is it compostable? Is it polythene wrappers? Is it using a lot of plastic? And carbon emission and waste in transport. So the transport of the garments from the suppliers to the retailers, that also uses a lot of energy. Then we come to the next